Yeah, I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes a very simple principle of life. This principle is powerful, yet it's so simple that it's possible that you might dismiss it. I hope you don't. And I'd like you all to listen attentively. It might resonate with you. It may not resonate with you. But I'd like you to come back to this recording session sometime in the future on the assumption that it doesn't resonate with you right now. That's okay. I'd like you to come back and listen to it again. You see, repetition is the mother of all skill. And in many cases, sometimes when we hear something for the second or the third or the fourth time, then suddenly the light bulb switches on. I heard someone say that when you hear something for the second time, that you don't hear something that you never heard before, but rather that you see something in yourself that perhaps wasn't there before. At every point in our life, we operate at a level of consciousness, a level of awareness. And the quality of your life and my life is really a reflection of the level of our awareness. The level of our consciousness enables us to attract to our lives what we wish, what we want, what we desire. So in many cases, it's not that what you want you don't have, or you haven't asked for, or life has refused to give it to you. It's in many cases, it's really that what you want, you don't have the consciousness to receive it. It's coming to you, but you don't have the awareness to recognize it. I've often said that I used to have this flawed philosophy that you had to be in the right place at the right time. Many of you might agree with that. And if I asked individually, you might say that's probably true. But it took me a while to realize that that was a flawed philosophy. It's not about being in the right place at the right time. You have to be the right person in the right place at the right time. But in itself, that doesn't complete the equation, because you can be the right person, you can be in the right place, and you could be in the right time or at the right time and still not succeed or still not achieve what you want. And the reason is because there's one final missing ingredient. You have to be aware of where you are. You have to be aware of the time and the season. You have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to be the right person. But most importantly, you've got to be aware of where you are. If you go into a car, for example, and you were going to travel, and the car had a GPS, a global positioning system, and you wanted to get perhaps a direction, a route from where you are to where you want to get to, the most important thing the GPS does is it identifies your current location. And that is because you've got to know where you are. You've got to be aware of it. So in many cases, it's not that we don't have what we want. It's just that we're not aware. And because we're not aware, we can't see opportunities. We can't recognize the dangers that are coming. So we can't make course corrections. And so whilst you're listening to this, and for those of you perhaps who are listening to this for the first time, you might find it to be different to what you perhaps are used to. I welcome your comments as always, but I'd like you to have an open mind. But I'm suggesting that you come back to this later on and just listen to it again and again and again. And after a while, what you might find is the awareness starts to increase, and then it gets to a point whereby you can now receive what I'm trying to share with you. Questions control the quality of your life and my life. And it took me a long time to understand why questions are so vital. I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught how to think. The most important job or quality or responsibility that we have, if I were to come into your respective homes, if I were to come into your respective businesses, and I asked you, what is the most important work that you do? And I'm sure many of you would tell me that you're an engineer, you're an architect, you're a dentist, you're a doctor, perhaps you're a physicist. You might give me a profession. You might even tell me, well, I'm a mother, I'm a father. So you might describe yourself based on your occupation or based on your responsibility. But the most important thing that you do is thinking, because the quality of your thinking controls the quality of your life. The quality of your thinking controls the quality of your decisions, and the decisions and choices you make controls the results you get in life. And so, to improve your life, you simply have to improve your ability to think. Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught how to think. Going through education or going through the education system, I was taught how to read and write. I was taught how to memorize, which is in principle what the traditional education system does. They teach you how to memorize, but they don't teach you how to use the mental faculty of reasoning. Your reasoning faculty is the element of your mind that you use to think. You can think inductively and you can think deductively. And it took me a long time, and I'm talking about a long time, to come to understand how to think. Because you see, because I wasn't trained on how to think, every time I tried to think, in many cases I just either fell asleep or my mind drifted to something else, or I found the process to be daunting, that I would get distracted or I would get bored. And it took me a long time to recognize that thinking is simply the process of asking yourself questions and answering those questions. Now that's so profound. And it was profound to me that I'm going to repeat that again. Thinking is simply the process of asking and answering questions. You're asking yourself questions. And if I wanted to define it in a much more interesting way, I would say that thinking is the craft of intelligently asking questions and moving from the point of asking the question towards potentially coming up with potential suggestions that could be answers. Because in many cases, when you think, you're not really looking towards the end always, because sometimes you don't really know what the answer is. But what you hope is that in the journey of thinking and in the process, that you'll be led, your curiosity, your imagination will lead you towards perhaps a destination that could provide to be the answer. So I use the word craft to define the process of thinking, because you see, thinking is not a science. If it were a science, it would mean that there are specific answers to every question. Science is based on principles. It means if you do this, the outcome is guaranteed. But that's not always the case with thinking, because each and every one of us is unique and we're different. So we think differently. So there's no one way to think. We have to think individually, the way we are based on our personalities, and we might come to the same conclusion, but the means that we use to get to the end are often different. Now, just like thinking is not a science, it's also not an art. Because by an art form, we are somewhat suggesting that, it requires some level of skill or talent. Some people say, well, you have the flair for art or you don't. If you were born into the art flair, then you become a great artist. That is somewhat suggestive of the fact, if I use it in this example, that some people don't have the ability to think, which I think is wrong and incorrect, because that would insinuate that each and every one of us has different levels of creativity at the foundation, which I think is incorrect. We all have a mind. There is only one mind. Some of us have developed our mind to the level that we are able to be more creative than others. But no one has more talent, more potential than you do. We all have different purposes, but the mind is universal, one mind. And that mind means any of us can create an idea or thought, and if we stay focused and we follow the principles of using right action, we can create anything we want. So everyone has the creative ability within, because everyone has a mind. 7 billion people alive today, but we have one mind. But 7 billion arrangements of the same mind. I usually use this example, and you must forgive me for perhaps deviating from our original topic. I usually use this example. I say, well, if you bring a piece of steel that is magnetized, it can lift a piece of object of about 10 times its size. If you bring another piece of steel that is demagnetized, it cannot lift a piece of paper or feather. Now, both of those pieces of steel are not different in substance, but they are different in the arrangement of the molecules within. So, likewise, we all have the same mind, but different arrangements. And if you rearrange your mind in the right way, and you rearrange it back to how it should function, then you get the same outputs, because the mind has unlimited potential, unlimited power, unlimited wisdom, and all of that beauty and greatness lies within. So it all depends on how you use it. Now, let me get back to what we're talking about. We haven't been trained on how to use our reasoning faculty. So, unfortunately, some of us are good at thinking and some of us are not. Now, my breakthrough came when I realized that I was overcomplicating the principle and the process of thinking. That I was simply sitting down or standing up or lying down, whatever you choose to, but it was simply the process of asking questions and choosing the questions in such a way that they create a pathway, and one question leads perhaps to a new discovery that leads you towards perhaps an answer. Now remember this at the start. You don't have the answer, because if you had the answer, you wouldn't think. What you're trying to do is think inductively and deductively, so your elimination. And so thinking in itself is the birthplace towards wisdom and understanding. Because by thinking, you automatically activate what I call the elimination process, where you now say, I have one question, 10 different possible answers, and I'll start eliminating the ones that are not correct until I get to the one that I think is the right one. And then when you get there, you test it, because then it becomes a theory, and then you test it to see whether it's really the answer. So thinking is not an art. No one is born, especially in terms of creativity, and no one is born without the creativity. Now, if thinking is not a science and it's not an art, then it must be a craft. And I use the word craft because it means you get better by practice. So no one is born a great thinker. No. And if you look through the history books, everyone who is called or who is classified or noted as a great thinker had great questions. Now, I heard someone say this sometime. I thought it was beautiful. They said, smart people have good answers. Geniuses have great questions. So thinking is a craft. You start off with questions. There might be bad questions, and you just keep doing it. And the more you do it, like every muscle, you get better at it, and the craft improves. Just like cooking, you get better at cooking. You don't become a great chef by learning and reading about how to be a great chef. You get good by getting into the kitchen and getting your hands dirty and trying it out. And that's how thinking works. So let's get back to the thinking and the process of questions. So thinking is simply the process of asking yourself questions and allowing yourself to be led through a chain of thought pattern towards an answer. Why are questions important? Well, I want you to just follow me through what I call a chronology of how your life is fashioned and formed. Now, this will sound simple, but also it might sound perhaps complicated, and I hope it doesn't sound too complicated, but I believe it should be simple. The questions you ask leads you to thinking. The thoughts you have in your mind, and as you think, create ideas. Now, your ideas decide the quality of the actions you take. The actions you take create your results. The results you create identifies the level of your success. Now let's go back again. Questions lead to thinking. Thinking creates ideas. Ideas improve the quality of your life, and therefore ideas lead to actions. The actions you take create results. The results you create defines the level of your success. So in every quality and in every area of your life, the quality of your questions determines the quality of your result. Whether it be financial, whether it be relational, health, spiritual, whether it be personal development, whatever it might be. I want you to just go through this chronology of events. Questions lead to thinking. Your thinking creates ideas. The ideas you have leads to certain actions. Those actions, if repeated over time, create habits. Those habits determine the results you have in your life. So to improve the quality of your life, you first have to improve the quality of your questions. It's so simple. Now, the biblical take on this is quite interesting because it says, if you want to achieve anything in life, there is a 3-letter word that you need. Not 1,000, not 100, 3. And the 3-letter word is ask, A-S-K. Profound. Simple but profound. The letter A means ask. The letter S means seek. The letter K means knock. Combine all three, you have the biblical verse that says, ask and you will receive. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened up to you. Now you can apply this, because it's a metaphor, you can apply to any area of life. Ask means that you are one question away from everything you need. It means that before you get anything in life, you have to first of all have the passion to ask. It doesn't necessarily mean that the first question you ask will be the best. It just says ask. Number 2, it tells you that once you've asked the question, that asking the question automatically doesn't determine that in every instance you get what you want. Asking is the beginning process. That it will now lead you down a path where now you have to seek. And the word seek is one that most people don't use very often. We don't use it in our English language. You don't say to your friend, well, I'm seeking out to find my ideal, home. I'm seeking to find my ideal partner. I'm seeking for the best physique. No, we use different words. But the word seek is a unique word used in our language today. What it simply means is that you search until you find what you're looking for. It's powerful. It says you're searching without giving up. That's what seeking means. It means that you're dedicated and you're persistent in your search until you're satisfied that you've found what you want. Now, seeking means that what you want is often not always made plain. That you've got to retreat back and perhaps either through your thinking, allow yourself to go deep into your conscious or subconscious mind and ask for the right answers. Or it might be you have to ask the questions, but do it in conjunction with other people. You go and look for people who perhaps think on the same level as you do. You go and find people who think opposite to how you think, and you have conflicting thoughts. You allow yourself to stress test some of your assumptions with other people. And by doing that, you're searching for answers. And by doing that stress testing, by allowing others to critique intelligently your your assumptions, that you find a pathway towards what you want. Now, the last word there is the letter K, which is knock. It says, knock and the door will be open up to you. And that is suggestive of the fact that what you want is hidden. That if what you want requires you drawing attention or someone's attention, it means one is important and that it's not for anyone. It's reserved, that the best things in life are reserved for those who deserve it. The best things in life are hidden. Think about this diamond. You don't find diamond walking down the street and just you look on the floor and next to the stone is diamond. No, you go digging. Gold, you go digging. Oil, you go digging. The best resources in life, you go searching. Your creativity, your genius, your greatness, your love and kindness is all within you. You go digging within to find what you want. And I think nature in its infinite wisdom has created the best things of life to be concealed. To be concealed from those who we call the faint-hearted. To be concealed from those who are the undeserving. To be concealed such that when you find it, you value it. Because the value of a thing is not what we think it is. Some people have a misconception of value. In many cases, the value of something is based on how rare it is and how much you're willing to sacrifice to get it, how much you're willing to pay for it, but also how rare it is. So if you look at the Oppenheimer diamond, and I may not pronounce that name right, the blue diamond, when it was sold at the auction so many years ago, it was sold for so much more. And the reason was because I think it represented 1 out of 1,000 that exist. It was so rare. In the same way, success in life, in any area of life, is not achieved without passion. And so in many ways, the ASK word, ask, is used to demonstrate the levels of your passion, the level of your desire. Some people will ask and they give up. Some people will ask and then seek and they give up. And some people will ask, seek, and knock. And even when they knock, no one answers and they start pounding on the door until someone wakes up. Now, I heard of this story about a lady, and the author was trying to explain how powerful persistence could be. And the author said that this lady went to the home of the judge and she was knocking on the door. And that's how life works in many cases. You arrive and then you ask, no one answers. You seek, you don't find it. You knock, no one opens. But you've got to keep pounding on the door. And the writing said that this lady wouldn't give up, that she knocked so hard that the judge had to get up in the middle of the night and go downstairs and say to the lady, "What do you want?" It got to a point where he had to come to an agreement with himself, where he said, "I've ignored her long enough and she will not go away. So I'm better off going down and dealing with her so that I can get some peace." And that's how life works, that you ask and ask and ask and you ask and then you seek and you seek and you seek and then you knock. But when you've found the right door, you knock so hard until someone opens up. In the same way, questions require different levels of passion. So I want to leave with you as I draw this to a conclusion, perhaps a daily ritual that I want you to start applying, a daily habit that I want you to adapt and apply. And that is every morning when you wake up, I like you to sit down as you perhaps make your cup of tea or make your coffee, as you make your maybe some hot water and lemon, whatever that might be. But as you wake up, when you haven't had the influx of all the distractions of the day, sit down somewhere quiet, pull out a piece of paper, get a pen, and I'd like you to just write down 5 questions. 5 questions, and this could be questions on anything you want, but I want it to have purpose. So ask these questions around maybe 6 or 7 categories of your life, perhaps business, your finances, perhaps your relationships, your health and well-being, maybe spirituality, personal development, but choose either categories of your life or priorities of your life, and I want you to just ask 5 questions. And this could be 5 questions in each area or 5 questions in one area. And as you write the questions down, I want you to then ask and allow yourself to think of about, for each question, 5 different answers. So you're going to write 5 questions and you're going to write 5 answers to each question. And don't overstress yourself. Just allow that creativity and that genius within you to guide you. Write the questions down and then allow the genius within to lead you towards the answer. But make this question strategic. By making it strategic, what I'm saying here is, don't make it tactical. Sometimes we focus too much on tactical questions. I'll give you a good example to make it clear. Strategic thinking is the big picture. Tactical thinking is the execution. It's literally in warfare, you might say, well, what type of ammunition do we use? That's tactical. Strategic is much bigger. Strategic is, you might be thinking, how do we ensure that we successfully win this, whatever it might be, war, but do it in such a way that we have the least casualties? So ask questions. Now, when you start, you might not be able to ask strategic questions. You might have to ask tactical questions, and that's okay. The key here is just get into the flow states, get into the habit of writing the questions down. In your life, to make it more closer to home, for example, rather than say how many, let's use your health, rather than say how many treadmill sessions can I do in a day, how many bench presses can I do, that's tactical. You might ask a question which is probably much, much better, which is, how do I improve the quality of my life and enjoy it and get the best out of it without drastically altering my lifestyle? That's much better, because for most people want a better quality of life, but they're asking the wrong question. So some people will ask the question, how do I lose weight? Well, that's the wrong question, because it doesn't create an inspiration or passion. You can change that question around. Some people might ask the question, what am I going to eat today so I can lose weight? That's the wrong question. You can turn it around, so you bring in some more passion. You might turn the question around by saying, how can I improve the quality of my conditioning? How can I improve the quality of my posture and form and physique? And enjoy the process. And in the process, achieve my goal of looking slimmer, more healthy, and happier. That's more strategic. It's much bigger. That picture then covers various areas. It will cover, nutrition. It would also cover perhaps exercise. It will cover maybe sleep. It'll cover various areas, and that's strategic. But in any case, what I'd like you to do every day is wake up in the morning, write down 5 questions, whether tactical or strategic. Then I want you to just allow yourself to brainstorm 5 answers and write down 5 answers to each question and just let it be. Halfway through the day, I'd like you to just glance at those questions you asked and let it be. At the end of the day, before you go to sleep, I'd like you to pull out the same piece of journal or book, and I'd like you to look at the question you asked at the start of the day, the answers you had, And then I'd like you to come up with maybe 2 or 3 extra questions. Sorry, 2 or 3 extra answers to each of those questions. You see, what you've done through the day is you've allowed that thought to be centered in your subconscious mind. You've taken it from your conscious mind and you passed it to your subconscious mind. And because you've glanced at the question, so at some point during the day, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself and the genius within you to come up with answers. And what you find that in some cases at the end of the day, you might come up with one extra answer, and that last answer could be the ultimate answer that you need. Get into the habit of doing that. And what you find is that the quality of your life changes, and I hope it does.